Okay, so let's get going. And before we start, I would request Dr. Surya Prakash to introduce himself, please.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Verman, and good afternoon to all. I am Surya Prakash. By academic background, I am a geologist, but now I am a working, you can say, professional and learner in the field of disaster management. I have worked on landslides for almost more than 3 decades. I started my career with landslides and continued to be a part of several initiatives at the national and international levels. I have been a member of International Consortium on Landslides. I have been the team leader for the World Center of Excellence on Landslides for almost 12 years. And 3 continuous times I got the World Center of Excellence. I've been member of NDMA committees. I was part of the core committee who developed the national guidelines. We have also developed the national strategies and also several other initiatives related to landslides and other disasters. Besides that, I deal with many disasters, but since the audience seems to be more of this, and regarding tunneling, we did one conference last year in November on the first anniversary of Silkara tunnel crisis. Dr. Verman and Patni, they were all involved. We have published that document now. Proceedings would be available perhaps by today evening on our website. You can see that a lot of good contributions came. So I think briefly that's all about it. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Arindom, please introduce yourself.
My respected panelist and August gathering present over here. I am Arindom Chakraborty. I am working in NHPC. I am also a geologist. And here all 4 of us are geologists, and only Verman sir is a civil engineer.
It's like Begani Shadi mein Abdullah Diwana.
I think one civil engineer, I think he is so eminent civil engineer, he can handle 4 geologists. So
one geologist among many changes. Yes.
So here generally one geologist they are in a project and there are so many civil engineers. But this is not the first time I am seeing the change. That's why. And another thing that I am sitting next to my one of my gurus, जिनसे मैंने सीखा है. I have learned lot of things from Patni sahab. So it is a privilege for me also, an honor for me also to sit beside him in this panel. And moreover, another thing is Surya Prakash sahab is also academically my senior. He has done PhD from IIT Gurgaon, where I was a student. And last for 2.5 decades I am with NHPC, and I have done geological investigation, construction work for many years project. Presently I am posted at Kistoa, where actually I am looking after the construction stage geological works. I am heading the group for 3 construction projects and 1 investigation project. So thank you so much, and I hand over it to Dr. Kohli to introduce.
Thank you. Thank you.
Namaskar, respected panelists and Verman sir and dear participants. It has been a wonderful discussion since yesterday, and I personally feel that I have learned many new things here. And as far as my academics is concerned, I have completed my master degree from Gurgaon University and PhD from Gurgaon University. And thereafter I started my career from National Institute of Hydrology, Roorkee, as project officer there. And after getting selected in UPSC 2005, I joined GSI. And starting my career from parts of Gurgaon, Himalaya, GSI has given me opportunity to work in parts of Western Ghats, Western Deccan Upland Plateau, Konkan, and then I got transferred from this place, Himachal. I am posted at Chandigarh, and GSI has given me opportunity to work in parts of Western Himalaya and Himachal. And in spite of many limitations, GSI has given me wonderful opportunities. I have no issue. There may be some limitations, I would say, but GSI has given me definitely more chance to explore my country. And I hope that before I got retired, as we are talking about, sir, one day I also have to retire. So I hope that in the coming days, in the coming years also, GSI will be giving me more chance to learn, more chance to explore our country. Thank you.
So thank you very much, our panelists, and we don't need to introduce Mr. Patni because all of you know about him so well now after his wonderful presentation from the heart. So I'll tell you the purpose behind this panel discussion and the topic of the panel discussion. And the purpose is simple. Year after year, we have devastating landslides. We are losing lives. We are losing infrastructure. Roads are getting closed. So much is at stake due to landslides. And this year, this monsoon has been particularly devastating. Each year, it seems the intensity, the scale, and the magnitude of this devastation induced by landslides is increasing. And the worrying thing for me and many experts is that many of these slides are happening on the engineered slopes, the slopes which are designed, the slopes which are constructed by the humans. So they should be designed to be safe. They should be constructed to be safe, but they are falling, they are collapsing. So that is the thing. So we need to ask a tough question, and that's what the panel is asking, that tough question, and panel is trying to answer. That the topic is, why do slopes fail? And perhaps more importantly, what can we do differently from here on? Right. So that is what that's the general theme of the discussion is, and it is my duty to ask questions, although I'm too small a fry to ask questions to these experts, but then it's the job that I have taken upon myself. So I hope you don't mind me asking questions. And so we start with Dr. Surya Prakash, and because he could not join yesterday, he joined today. So all of us have spoken a lot. He hasn't spoken much, so we have to start with you, Dr. Surya Prakash. And since he represents the disaster management ecosystem of the country very strongly, so from a disaster management and resilience point of view, in your opinion, why do you think the slopes fail in India? Also, in the system, what systemic gaps you see which is contributing towards this?
Thank you, Dr. Verman. It's, I think, a very vital question and a challenging question to answer. But my answer has been facilitated already by the presence of Sri Patni ji, who just in his lecture informed that most of the landslides and slope failure, they occur because of one major triggering factor, that is poor water pressure. Water plays an important role. Not only poor water pressure, if you classify landslides, because I deal with landslides in all kind of environments. For me, it's not just the Himalayan or the Western Ghats, but even the submarine landslide, coastal landslides, or underground subsurface mining landslides.
Right.
They're all issues related to disasters. So we have to look from that perspective. There can be different regions, but normally we look at it from three perspectives. One is geology, which is in existence for millions of years and billions of years at times, and it cannot be changed. But it is getting exposed and becoming fragile and sensitive. So that is what we call as preparatory factors, which change because of the evolution and dynamics amongst the environment. So we have to notice that what are those preparatory factors affecting the likelihoods in terms of space, time and magnitude or scale. Then the second part is the controlling factors. You're talking about discontinuities, joint spars, ruptures, cracks, thrust, folds. These are controlling structures. This is one. Another part of controlling structures is our morphology, drainage systems. So morphostructural mechanisms controlling the limits or dimensions of landslides are another parameter which need to be looked into in details. The third important aspect of it is the triggering factor. Situations do exist, conditions do exist, but landslides are not happening all the times. So when do they initiate and how long they continue? There can be landslides with short moments, there can be landslides which can continuous and persistent. So accordingly we have to devise our solutions. So the third triggering factor is normally the external factor or the geodynamic factor, which may be an earthquake or a vibration or an undercutting or scouring or toe erosion by river or deforestation, mining or forest fires and like that. So these are major three issues. Now I have to address those issues. My work is not identifying the problem, cause, factors or dimensions, but my issues are related to its consequences and controls. So that's my main area of intervention. Now how do I intervene? One is SlopeTech, where we are focusing only on tools, techniques and technologies. But this doesn't serve the whole purpose. Let me tell you, at one time, at the international level, we were having a global meeting like this with all experts on landslides, and NGL and ITC Netherlands. They said we want to have a world center of excellence and teach Asians about landslide management. By chance I was present, I raised my hand and said no. You cannot manage our landslide, particularly I can talk about India. They said why? We have knowledge, we have science, we have technology, we have been managing. Why do you think we cannot manage your landslides in India? We are having Asia level world center. I said no. Management is not just techniques or technologies or science or the knowledge or information. It's much beyond. It's our culture, it's our economics, it's our politics. You know what aggravates those problems. You and I was discussing many of our colleagues here, and there's a super boss tells something else, and the person at the ground wants something else. And there's a conflict, and who overrides? The boss, who has never seen the site. Somebody was telling, there is a collapse in the tunnel, but boss from outside the tunnel tells you do this. You have not gone into the store. And we won't agree being field workers, no? So this is happening not only with us, but at our governance level, which is controlling all this investments and the practices. So what needs to be awakened is our governance, the assemblies, the parliament, and then the bureaucracy. I had always stressed a lot of times. My director actually used to be earlier the commissioner of Jammu and Kashmir, and he was before that the district commissioner of Ladakh, where Patni ji actually controlled one of the consequences of a major landslide which took place on 31st December 2014, and he could actually do it, and that Janskar Hills at Futtal River. So what he used to say is that I have seen so many landslides and I have got it managed. I managed it. I said, you are wrong. You have not managed it. You have only supervised. You have only given the direction. And I have managed it. Because I have gone onto this ground and I have studied them in detail. If you talk about any kind of studies, during my studies I did geological, structural, morphological, tectonic, geotechnical, or hydrological, whatever possible tools and techniques I tried. So, thing is that we can apply many of these tools and techniques. They very good. And even our class we are getting indigenous tools. And I see the people represented from CSMR, they made the first initiative to build enough piezometers in the country and also inclinometers and other such instruments, extensometers. So, we have the capacities. But we are not able to address the problem exactly as it requires solutions. So I think we are struggling against the system, as he said. Systemic hazards are perhaps the biggest hazards than the physical hazards. We can control them. So we have to think about soil health monitoring and management systems like the information. We have now got health information platform. They can take care of all human health or animal health. Similarly, the slope health, which is one of the important elements to particularly of interest to the people in the hills. Lot of landslides. At present, we have data of around a lakh of landslides. But I think we have much more than what is recorded by us. And the landslide disasters, casualties are much more higher than what are being. So I think a lot of issues we cannot discuss within short term. This is a long panel.
Yes.
But I think we should think it holistically, integrated manner, not only our perspective and our work, but how can we get integrated into the whole system and govern it well, and ultimately the communities. Somebody was talking that how this system will get controlled. One is the governance from the public representatives and the bureaucracy, the other is communities themselves. They get awakened and they become alert. They arise to the situations, nothing wrong will happen. So this is another part where we have to bring sensitization and awareness amongst all of them. So with these words, I thank you for this.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a good answer because I asked him specifically about his opinion about why slopes fail, and he was very categorical about it. And I asked a little tougher question along with it, that what the systemic gaps you see, and he mentioned those gaps. I did not ask him what are the answers, how do you plug this. That would have been more difficult, but still he threw some light on that, what would be done going forward. But we all have to collectively arrive at that what needs to be done. So I turn towards, I'll skip Mr. Patni for some time. And I'm coming to Mr. Arindom Chakraborty, NHPC basically. And NHPC, as you know, is the owner of hydropower projects, so they're building the hydropower projects. So the question is, as a project owner and working in the Himalayas, what are the real world challenges that you or your company faces in ensuring slope stability? When I say ensuring slope stability, that means balancing safety, time and cost.
Thank you, Atul sir, for giving me the opportunity. See, actually, there are 2-3 aspects of slope stabilization. One is the investigation part. Sometimes, due to what Patni sir has already highlighted, that due to some site constraints, we could not do enough investigations because mostly they are forest covered, canopy covered, or they are very much inaccessible. Even then, we NHPC, I can vouch for that. Amongst all other hydropower developers, NHPC DPR are much more illustrative much more elaborative than all other developer perhaps, whatever I have seen. That is one part. The site-specific data for every site, every inches, it is not possible to collect due to site constraint. Even though we try to collect as much accurate as possible, then based on that the design are developed. But I think very few failures. Previously there were design related failures were there. But what I feel that our site engineers and our contractors representatives, they need to be educated enough, because suppose one aspect is design related part. What in my 25 years experience I have seen that 15 to 20% cases that may be design failure, but mostly those are execution failures. That may be due to several causes maybe there. Sometimes the contracts are EPC, and in my personal opinion, the mega projects like hydro, we should avoid, based on the some of my experiences, we should avoid EPC contract, because contractor has a tendency to curtail his budget and make it in a minimum time. So they do not deploy the knowledgeable manpower. They curtail on the other works, like suppose they are installing SDS, but they will not grout it till the diffuser. So those things, but another thing is that our PMC, or in cases where we are the agencies who are monitoring, our monitoring is, there is some lacunas in the monitoring level also, because everywhere we do not monitor it very proficiently, so that there are some gaps. So mostly 75% of the slopes, engineered slopes or the man-made slopes which are failed, that is due to execution failure. The slopes design, it is given that the support should be installed after every blast. But we often see that after 15 meter or 20 meter excavation has been done, no support has been installed. And everybody knows that there is a stand-up time concept. If you do not install the support at a particular time or the required support within the stand-up time, the rock mass condition will deteriorate and there might be chances of failure. So there are targets are given, and the ministries nowadays there are lots of meetings, the number of meetings, because when I joined my profession, the meetings were monthly or quarterly. Now it is every weekly or twice weekly. So the targets are so stringent, so that sometimes the top level bosses, they commit some particular dates which are practically not possible to adhere to those targets. So what happens? The quality and this support, timely installation of supports, they get compromised. And sometimes what happens, the geologists or quality engineers, they are often thought that they are basically barriers to development, but they are not. Basically, see, when the quality geology, those who are responsible to for proper working with the proper quality standard, they basically help in timely completion of the project. Because suppose you have done 1 month earlier one particular bench and suddenly it has collapsed, you will lose 6 months to this retrofit or to for damage mechanism. So those things, the site engineers and the site contractor engineers, both developers and contractors or PMC, they need to be educated. They need to be need to be sensitized. And another thing, it is, suppose I have talked about hydro, and hydro DPR, there is a very given procedure by CA. It goes to all the agencies like CWC for design, CSMRS for rock mechanics and construction material related aspects, soil related aspects, GSI for all the detailed geological aspects. So many divisions it goes. But what about road projects? Road projects, the MORTAs, they have one department. And last year, 2023-24, they signed an agreement with GSI, so that the critical reaches, the DPR will go to GSI for vetting. But now I was discussing with someone, but none of the projects have been referred to GSI. So that yesterday, that our ex-DG Saab, he came. I also requested him to sensitize their people. Their condition is much poorer than that of hydropower project. So as long as so I request Dr. Verman Saab, this type of next batch of the training should be given to the site engineers.
Sure.
And see, they think that why the design we should know, we have to execute, but they should know that sometimes people say that, sir, why we need 9-meter rock boards? It is difficult to install. 6 meter rock board लगा देते हैं, spacing change कर देंगे. But they should know what is the requirement, what is the science behind it. So those things, site and design should be properly in coherence with each other, so that if holistic approach can be taken up and the slopes can be properly constructed safely. And another thing, water is it has been talked in so many presentations that water is the most critical factor for slope instability. So what I have seen that the weep holes are given, but it never weep. Always the water comes from some other places. Yes. The rock bolts, that means that there is some CMC issue, that the rocks bolts should be grouted with neat cement grout, the free length. And those grouting are not there, so rock bolts are coming. Even the end grout is also not proper. That's why the water is coming from the rock bolt. Right. And the weep holes, sometimes after few months it gets choked. Right. So there is no properly textile geosynthetic material it has not been wrapped properly. So those site related issues should be taken care of, so that we can avoid this type of landslides. Okay. At least in the first, we should take a note that the man-made structures, there should not be any failure. So because whatever given in the design, that should be properly implemented at site. This is my
wonderful. In fact, you raised many pertinent points, and I'm starting to wonder that where to start in this country. if we focus only on hydropower, for example, we really need to do a lot of things. Perhaps we have to not only write down what needs to be done, the procedure, the standard operating procedures, and implement. And you also mentioned about the road sector. I'll tell you my personal experiences. As I mentioned yesterday, that all of us old timers learned our tunneling, etc., through hydropower projects, because the roads project, all this construction started much later. And so obviously when you go to project sites, you visit and you meet people as experts, as consultants. We have this habit of pointing fingers. Oh, you're not doing this thing correctly. You're not doing that thing correctly. And once the road sector opened up for tunneling construction, I wanted to go back to hydropower sector and say, sorry, you were doing much better than what is being done now in road sector. So that is what is happening. And he really raised the point that road sector also will benefit from the structured approval procedures that hydropower has. But then this is a little disheartening to know that, yes, we all know about that MOU they signed, but they really haven't worked on that GSI. They also signed an MOU with, I think, NIDM also, and I'm not sure what happened there. And I'm also on a couple of panels, but the panels never meet. There's hardly any meeting. So in the road sector, so that seriousness has to come in that sector, because so much of tunneling and slope stabilization is being done by them. And so wonderful. One question I want to ask you is out of syllabus, is that you talk about with the perspective of projects under construction mostly, yes. But then NHPC owns projects which are already constructed, the legacy projects. Yes. Now, over a period of time, things may have changed. Maybe the poor maintenance may have choked the weep holes, as you mentioned. Maybe the climate change related cloudbursts are happening more. So maybe those slopes near the projects were not designed for these kind of situations. And I'm not sure how much of that was to contribute to the recent collapse at that Ganga. So is there any talk or any thinking within NHPC about looking or revisiting the design, etc., of the legacy projects?
Sir, for NHPC, we have a robust dam safety inspection team. We go to all the constructed projects every year, and we inspect all the components. Like in few projects, like in SlopeTech, it was what Patni sir has mentioned, that in SlopeTech, after this commissioning, 1 year after later, there was a major collapse, which one part of the tunnel was washed away. Then they had to construct a bypass tunnel, and that area is totally a subsidence prone zone. It is that subsidence prone zone for that to water was the main cause, and they constructed well shafts. And even after that, after 35-40 years, various drains to accumulate the water in a particular point and with siphoning action to drain out the water. But even after that, there were some one surface penstock is around 1.3 kilometer. There were some subsidences along the anchor blocks through which the penstock was erected and was supported. So later on, around after 30 years, like around 2018 or so, the detailed piling works were carried out. Detailed survey from 2010 to 2020. We are also involved, but Sir was also involved. I was reporting to him only. We went there, and then subsequently in 2018, detailed this piling works. All the anchor blocks were socketed with hard rock below, geophysical survey, geological mapping. All those things were carried out, and like that in many projects, like in Ganga also, after commissioning also, there were some issues. We carried out the extensive supporting work. In Chavera project, very steep slopes, the rockfall was, we engaged one agency, and they carried out the intensive slope stabilization. So we carry out, nevertheless, an initial at that time, the design was made 30 years back. At that time, the technologies were different, and now we try to adapt the latest technologies because these dams are our source of bread and butter. So suppose one damage can cost us, like in our Tista project, one problem, this flood. The project is still not been recommissioned. So it is.
So is it fair to say it's all about money, honey?
Obviously, because for running our business, we have to take care of our slopes, our tunnels, our structures. We all in many tunnels there were some issues, some concrete blocks. particles we came to our turbines. So immediately this emptied the tunnel and we identified the locations where the problems are there, and we retrofitted it, we supported and made the reconcreting. So we do that.
Great, wonderful. So perhaps that is that a part of the reason, anybody can answer, part of the reason why there is little bit of indifference within the road sector, because perhaps it's not their bread and butter. I mean, they do charge toll tax, but they charge toll tax on horrible roads also. So, is that part of the reason? I mean, anyone would like to answer this question? Is that why there's a more indifferent in road sector towards these issues as compared to hydropower sector?
See, you already said we learnt about tunneling more from the hydropower sector, and we had been doing a lot in mining, also in shafts and drives. So, but then when it comes to highways, these highways require tunnels mostly in the hill areas, and most of these hill roads, they were being taken care by our border roads organization. They did not have any tunneling. They did not have any tunnel engineer. So that was the shortfall in their own cadre, that they did not take tunnels as one of the means or assets of the highways. Later on, when landslide problems were faced, the first cut and cover tunnel they did was in Shillong, at one of the landslide areas, Sunapur landslide, where the regular frequent problems were happening. One of the engineer, geotechnical engineers, he took that initiative. He became chief engineer later on. Dr. S.S. Parwal, he did PhD on landslide. And then thereafter they started working on it, because traditional practices were different. It was very difficult for him also to get all approvals. But then there was some collaboration between Government of India and Government of Japan. Somehow I was leading that cooperation from behalf of Government of India, and took this matter with MORTH, that in Japan, while passing through the hills, normally minimum 40% of the road will go through the tunnels to bypass active landslides. Whereas in India, we were not doing so. So this is this economics in terms of long-term economics. In terms of road construction, we look at the budgetary issues. The surface roads are cheaper than the tunnels. But if you see the lifetime cost of running those roads, tunnels become cheaper than the surface roads if they are coming across the landslides. So these are the parameters which are actually
very well said.
Affecting all this.
And going forward, I think we need to increase this conversation. I hope we'll discuss in your conference next month about why tunnels are more important than managing and struggling with the landslide. So I turn towards Dr. Atul Kohli and GSI now. And so, Dr. Kohli, you've been doing, GSI has been doing a lot of mapping, a lot of studies, and a lot of compilation of the results of those studies. So, in your opinion, what geological or geotechnical factors are most overlooked when designing slopes? Or are we falling short in the investigation itself? And then, why go towards designing even in the investigation? So, what are the factors, in your opinion, are most overlooked?
Sir, in my opinion, I feel that as Surya said that besides mapping we need solution also. But okay, when our part is that, then I would like to say that many times we are doing mapping on different scales, but and giving in the same maps in the reports also. And on the ground truth, it is from my side, they are quite okay for a better extent, for a better extent. But as far as parameters you are saying, sir, so personally I feel that drainage is one thing which is quite neglected on slopes, and in case of major roads in, for example, in Himachal Pradesh, these days in the morning also somebody has talked about Kalka-Shimla road. So there I can see that in 2017 when I came here, a letter was written to NHAI to get the same area investigated and get mapped, and some suggestions which can be there from our side that could have been given, but the same there was no response from that the other side. So and after 5 or 6 years the situation you can see there, and now in the meantime few letters came there for the study of landslides, and then we said that if it could have been requested earlier, I think वही है कि starting में problem को solve करना थोड़ा ज़्यादा easy होता है. Same thing is with railways. It is we are talking about roads, but railway is also one major communication medium. So in 2017-18, from Northern Railway, one study came to us to connect this Vilaspur with Leh, and at that time that was a preliminary study, of course. We have been given 10 alignments or 8 alignments like that, and mostly that was the desk study which was given to us. There was no ground study from the other end. And when we studied that, we have tried to eliminate few tunnels and few bridges, and we have given some other options also. The next time the study on towards the second phase, we requested them with our what we want to do further. The study has not came again. So I do not know why this thing is neglected, and after 3 or 4 or 5 years, in the present times, these 3-4 years are nothing from my side. And we can see that how much severe problems we are seeing here. My colleague is talking about deep holes. When we travel across the road, city roads in Himachal, they are never clean. And this is one thing. Second thing is they are hardly thought of whether at which particular angle they should be aligned. It is not like that there is some guideline 20 degree. Okay, we cannot put those drainage holes or deep holes at 20 degree everywhere. It is not possible. That is why we do site specific studies. So at a particular site, which kind of drainage arrangement is required, whether it is surface drainage or whether it is this deep holes, etc. But we need to think about that from that particular site point of view. Which kind of material is there, how much is the angle is there, how much is the inclination is there. Okay, I would like to use the word inclination for slope as it is a topographic feature. I would not like to use the term for slope, the slope angle we use often, but it is rather a slope inclination.
Right.
So drainage is one thing, then sometimes it is slope. You are cutting, one example I would like to cite from Dharamshala down 3-4 years back. They were developing a trolley system from Dharamshala to McLeodganj, and there was a commercial parking that was being developed. What I came to know from the local people is there was a children park there that has been swallowed like anything, and by way of filling the dumping material, they were developing that particular parking. And there were some breast walls that they were being given, but the material which they were filling was of clay type. So the same spot has faced a lot of damages there. All the walls got collapsed. The administrator was quite good there, and he was saying that from my side you are free, whatever you want to write you can write. You don't worry about this thing. So at many places we can see that some negligence is there.
Yes, yes. I understand. Yeah.
The same we can see from many examples. I can see that. And one thing, sir, several guidelines were discussed here. One thing I would like to say that guidelines are prepared based on the expert knowledge often. And people who have spent 30 years, 40 years of their entire life, they have spent and they have developed some guidelines. They are very much helpful, no doubt about that. To a field-going person, to a full field-going geologist, they are extremely useful. But I would like to say India is a terrain of different kind of geological setups, geographical setups like that. So it cannot be applied blindly. The one who is working on the ground, he can always add something or minus something depending on the requirement of the site. For example, I used a few years back, I was doing some study in Ratnagiri, and there I used BIS guidelines for hazard reduction. You are already aware of that. So their laterite was not there, and my study area was having about 90% of laterite. So I need to introduce in that.
Right.
Okay, it is not getting published, that is another thing, but to work, to produce the map, to give some inputs from my side, I have to give consideration to that particular unit. It cannot be neglected. Okay, it is not there in that guideline, so I will not be using this. It is not like, it should not be like that. So the site-specific geological considerations you need to consider. You have to give weightage to those factors.
Right. Very nicely put. In fact, yes, brought out many points. And there's a thing at the heart of it, I'll tell you. But you mentioned that the most overlooked parameters, drainage, you mentioned very clearly. And obviously, also the fact that if GSI was present doing the mapping and doing the studies there, perhaps you would have not only advised about how to put the drainage, where to put what angle, etc., but also would have seen many other parameters. Now, one thing which is sadly missing now, which was not the case earlier when in my growing up years, is that it was almost mandatory to have GSI's inputs in the projects or all hydropower projects, etc. That has changed now. And if any sector needs GSI's inputs, is the road sector, at most now, and we see the results. So, but then you also mentioned the lack of communication, the lack of response from the railways and roadways to your suggestion of what should be done, what can be done, and don't come back. It's really unfortunate because we've got one of the finest surveys in the world, and we are not making use of them as much as we should have. So those are the areas in which definitely I fully agree with you.
So one thing I would like to add that earlier there was some problem, I don't know, in my initial days, my friends from academics, etc., they were saying that they are not getting any input from GSI, any report from GSI. Okay, I cannot comment on our system, but right now so much of data is floating on GSI website. It has been uploaded like anything. Yesterday you were giving the data, 1,000 reports or something. That could have been, from my point of view, I think it is a 2015. Post 2015 after 2015 का data है सब.
Maybe.
Because thousands of reports are there, they are still lying in libraries. And in recent years, GSI got digitized those reports. They have been uploaded. They may be having some limitations. Okay, in the time frame, it varies from person to person. GSI is not refusing me to do this thing or that thing. They have sent me at the site. Now it is my input. How somebody was talking at the lunch also. So I can say that. Something is restricted with that particular geologist, that particular person who is actually the site. He is having the flag of the department. How he is progressing in his work, that matters.
Correct, absolutely right. Well, thank you very much for your inputs, Dr. Kohli. And we finally turn towards Mr. Patni. So, Mr. Patni, as all of us know now and have seen during your presentation, that you spent decades on the ground, more than 4 decades on the ground, hands-on, etc. So, although you have mentioned a lot of the answer to the question I'm going to ask, you have already answered that, but you want a formal answer as part of this panel discussion is, what are the most common mistakes you see in how slopes are excavated, supported or maintained? The most common mistakes.
After heavy lunch, everybody is feeling sleepy. So now it is my moral duty कि आपको जगा दूँ. राजवल साहब, आप व्यस्त हुए हैं मोबाइल में, और क्योंकि ऐसा है बड़ा डिप्लोमेटिक आंसर तो मैं नहीं दूंगा, बड़ा स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड आंसर दूंगा. एक थिंक टैंक डेवलप करना पड़ेगा हमको. जब हम किसी स्लोप की बात करते हैं, मैंने वी टॉक अबाउट स्लोप, अबाउट टनल्स, अबाउट डैम्स, उसके लिए एक ऐसा सिस्टम हो जिसमें डिफरेंट डिसिप्लिन के लोग हों, कैपेबल हों, कॉम्पिटेंट हों, एंड लैक ऑफ नॉलेज अगर आपको है, व्हेन यू सेलेक्ट ए कॉन्ट्रैक्टर, यू अवॉइड द L1 चाहे कैपेबल हो या ना हो, बट उसको चले जाता है, बिकॉज इट इज़ मैंडेटरी, इट इज़ गवर्नमेंट रूल्स. बट उसके परिणाम, द रिजल्ट्स विच कम्स आउट आफ्टर कंस्ट्रक्शन, इट इज़ डिजास्ट्रस. जस्ट लाइक दैट, व्हेन यू treat any slope, as I told you, 30% is a grey area which you do not know, and it opens after excavation. And at that time, the people who are working at site, पूरा निर्णय, पूरा जजमेंट, पूरी विजडम उनके ऊपर है. अगर उन्होंने वहाँ पे जरा भी गलती कर दी तो पूरा कराया जो DPR है, जो कुछ है, वो सब फेल हो जाता है. नंबर 1. नंबर 2, and the contractor which is engaged in the construction of the treatment, he should be capable financially, टेक्निकली, एंड उसकी जो कैपेबिलिटी है उसको पूरा यूज़ करना है. वो कैसे? थ्रू PMC. कभी मैंने आई हैव सीन इन माय सर्विस एरिया ऑल्सो, कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स के पास सब कुछ है, उसके पास मैन पावर भी है, मशीन भी है, मगर जब वो इम्प्लीमेंटेशन की बात आती है तो उसको इम्प्लीमेंट कराने के लिए आदमी नहीं होते उसके पास. क्यों? कॉन्ट्रैक्टर भी चाहता है कि यार सस्ते से सस्ता मिल जाए, 15-20 हज़ार में साइड का इंजीनियर मिल जाए और कोई मैनेजर मिल जाए 30-40 हज़ार का, और जैसा आदमी सेलेक्ट करोगे उसी हिसाब से ट्रीटमेंट भी होगा। नंबर 1। नंबर 2, there are some companies, good companies. Early days, I remember those days, SCC was doing the slope production work. They are highly professional and quality oriented people. उनके साथ ऐसा नहीं होता था, but nowadays अब everybody wants to save money. कैसे मैं पैसे को बचाऊँ? As far as the case this SDA anchors is concerned, लोग सीमेंट बचाने की कोशिश करते हैं। जितना कम सीमेंट चला गया, ऐसे ही आपको सीमेंट ग्राउटिंग करनी है। अब व्हाट इज द ग्राउट मीन्स डिजाइन क्या किया आपने एंड व्हाट प्रेशर यू आर सेंडिंग द ग्राउट, वो आपको देखना। अगर किसी एसडीए ने 50 बैग सीमेंट ले लिया, जस्ट थिंक, सपोज देयर इज अ हॉलो स्पेस और दैट एसडीए कंज्यूम, दैट होल कंज्यूम्स 50 बैग्स ऑफ सीमेंट। कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स तो कभी ही विल नेवर वांट टू पंप 50 बैग्स ऑफ सीमेंट, ही विल से मेरा 5 बैग में काम चल। तो ये जो माइंडसेट है, जो एटीट्यूड है, वो इट्स वेरी डेंजरस। नंबर 1। नंबर 2, एक ऊपर से नीचे तक एक हायरार्की होती है। आपके पास इंजीनियर्स हैं, मैनेजर्स होंगे, उसके ऊपर जीएम होंगे या व्हाटएवर इट इज, जो भी अपने हायरार्की में होंगे, उनका एक रोल हो जाता है कंटिन्यूस मॉनिटरिंग नीचे से ऊपर तक। वो देखते रहे कि कहाँ पर क्या काम हो रहा है, एज पर द बीओकी हो रहा है कि नहीं, एज पर द टेक्निकल स्पेसिफिकेशन हो रहा है कि नहीं। अगर नहीं हो रहा है तो आपको पकड़ना पड़ेगा, और इन केस अगर कहीं पर गलती होती है तो उसका खामियाजा भुगतने के लिए भी आपको तैयार रहना पड़ेगा। और एक चीज़ और आपको बता दूँ, अकाउंटेबिलिटी इज द मेन थिंग। हमारे यहाँ अकाउंटेबल कोई नहीं है। स्लोप गिर जाए कोई बात नहीं, बनाने के बाद गिर जाए, इट्स अ वेरी अनफॉर्चुनेट। इफ यू फिक्स अकाउंट, आजकल क्या होगा, नए कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स को द कॉन्ट्रैक्टर आई मीन द क्लाइंट इज गिविंग वारंटी पीरियड, आपका स्लोप 5 साल तक टिका होना चाहिए, अदरवाइज वी विल पोज यू पेनल्टी। दिस इज व्हाट पीपल से, बट ऐसा आज तक मैंने नहीं देखा किसी को कॉन्ट्रैक्टर का अगर 3 साल बाद बिगड़ गया, पीपल दे ट्राई टू फाइंड आउट द सॉल्यूशन, कैसे इसको साला रफा दफा कर दिया जाए। तो दिस इज ए वेरी बैड हैबिट। आप अकाउंटेबल उसको बना दीजिए, एंड सिमिलरली द ऑफिसर्स हु इज एंगेज फॉर दिस वर्क, आई मीन फॉर पीएमसी वर्क, ही विल आल्सो बी अकाउंटेबल, देन ओनली यू कैन गेट अ गुड वर्क फ्रॉम हिम। और नॉर्मली आप जितने भी स्लोप हैं, अगर आप देखिए, अगर आपकी क्लोज मॉनिटरिंग है एंड यू आर डूइंग रिलीजियसली वट एवर वर्क यू आर डूइंग रिलीजियसली, उसके रिजल्ट्स बहुत अच्छे आते हैं। हमारे बड़े बड़े स्लोप हैं, इनको ट्रीट किया गया है, और जो आज इंटैक्ट हैं, से टेक द केस ऑफ गौरी प्रोजेक्ट, आज तक उसमें क्रैक भी नहीं आया। इट्स वेरी गुड, बिकॉज वो काम जो किया गया, आपको विश्वास नहीं होगा। जब हम लोग when we were lowering the Dolly स्लोप, हम एक पत्थर डाले, एक जॉइंट ओपनिंग थी बहुत बड़ी, हमने एक स्टोन डाला उसमें, और उसकी आवाज़ कम से कम हमको 30 सेकेंड्स तक मिली गिरने की। इसका मतलब देयर इज अ हॉलो डीप कैविटीज, एंड फाइनली वी डिसाइडेड व्हाई टू पंप ए कंक्रीट, क्योंकि ग्राउट तो उतना भर नहीं सकते। वी डिसाइडेड टू पंप, टू फिल अप विद द पंप कंक्रीट। हमने अपनी मशीन तैयार करी, and in that hole we had pumped more than 400 cubic meter of concrete, और 400 cubic meter हमने A20 M20 राइट, A20 का एग्रीगेट, M20 स्टेप, उस कंक्रीट को पंप किया, और जब तक वो भर नहीं गया हम शांति से नहीं बैठे। तो दिस सॉर्ट ऑफ एटीट्यूड इज रिक्वायर्ड। उसके बाद फिर जब हमने एंकरिंग करी है, वो कंक्रीट जब आता था तो डीलर हमको बताता था कुछ हार्ड स्टार्टर हमको नहीं बनाता। तो दिस सॉर्ट ऑफ रिक्वायरमेंट, ये इस तरह का माइंड सेट की ज़रूरत पड़ती है। उसके अलावा ग्राउटिंग, हम लोग बड़े वी आर वेरी माइजर। ग्राउट में क्या है, इट्स हिडन वर्क, तो इंजीनियर्स को ब्लेम हो जाता है, इंजीनियर चोरी करता है, ये दिस एंड दैट, देयर आर सो मेनी पैरामीटर्स, नथिंग डूइंग। आप ग्राउट करिए, पूरा हिल को ग्राउट करिए, और जाना दीजिए भाई, आराम से सुनो। कॉस्ट, टेक द कॉस्ट ऑफ वन बैग की कितनी है, 300 रुपये 400 रुपये, और हैंडलिंग चार्जेज ही मिलाकर 600 रुपये का टैक्स मिलता है। मगर वो आपकी कितनी मदद करेगा ये सोचिए। और आज की डेट में जो डिज़ाइन हम कर रहे हैं, प्लीज़ डिज़ाइनर की ब्लेंडिंग होना जरूरी है साइट के साथ। जो डिज़ाइनर दिल्ली में बैठ के अगर किसी स्लोप का डिज़ाइन कर रहा है तो दिस इज़ वेरी अनफॉर्चुनेट। ही शुड कॉन्टैक्ट द साइट पीपल, ही शुड गो टू द साइट, एक साथ बैठे इन वन प्लेटफॉर्म, डिस्कस द प्रॉब्लम एंड उसके बाद कम टू द कंक्लूजन। अदरवाइज ऐसा हो जाएगा फिर आप न इधर के रहेंगे न उधर। तो बेटर ये है कि गुड कोऑर्डिनेशन बिटवीन द साइट पीपल एंड द डिज़ाइनर। और साइट पर जैसे ही कोई प्रॉब्लम आती है इमीडिएट कॉन्टैक्ट विद द डिज़ाइनर, उनको कॉन्फिडेंस भी लीजिए कि सर दिस प्रॉब्लम हैज कम, हाउ टू सॉल्व इट। सपोज EPC एरोगेंट डिज़ाइनर, ही डज नॉट, तो आप अपने मन से करिए। हमने किया है कई टाइम, हमारे डिज़ाइनर कहते हैं लीजिए तो ये जो हमने दिया दिस इज ऑल ओके, हम इससे आगे कुछ नहीं करते, ठीक है ओके तुम अपनी बात, हम करने जा रहे हैं, एज बिल्ड डिज़ाइन बाद में इशू कर देंगे। तो दिस सॉर्ट ऑफ प्रैक्टिस इज रिक्वायर्ड। और कैजुअल अप्रोच इन द स्लो, in the treatment of the slope, in the construction of tunnel is very dangerous. I am again saying casual approach आपकी बिल्कुल नहीं चलेगी सर। When you are dealing with a very sensitive tunneling media or sensitive slope, आपकी casual approach नहीं चलेगी। If you have any element of doubt, आप consult the seniors, consult the experts, take the opinion. Then only you can save that slope. Otherwise, there is no chance. और मैं चाहता हूँ वर्मन साहब, ऑडियंस से अगर आप कुछ सवाल लें
बिल्कुल पूछेंगे,
थोड़ा इनसे पूछिए क्योंकि हम अपने एक्सपीरियंस
नहीं आ रहे हैं बिल्कुल आ रहे हैं।
दिस इज ऑल।
Yes.
छोटे से आपको बात
Yes. So that was in fact you gave me 2 or 3 ideas for my next question to the panel. But in any case, the next round is going to the audience. So we ask the question, request audience to ask the questions or and ask the panelist or ask anybody here. So we can take 2-3 questions from the audience. Any questions for anybody? Yes, please.
मेरा क्वेश्चन पत्नी सर से है। जैसा कि धराली का आपने फोटो दिखाया था 1930 का, नैनीताल का 80 का दिखाया था। तो सर हमें तो डेवलपमेंट भी जरूरी है हमारा, बट सेम टाइम हमको ये जो ये हो रहा है ना कि पॉपुलेशन इतना हो जा रहा है, इतना घर बन जा रहा है, जरूरत हमारा वो भी है, लेकिन हम इसमें बैलेंस कैसे करें सर? कैसे सेफर जाएं, कंस्ट्रक्शन भी करें जैसे, क्योंकि डेवलपमेंट नहीं होगा तो वैसे कि वैसे ही रह जाएगा। जैसे उसमें उस समय एग्रीकल्चर था, सिर्फ बाद में इतने हाउसेज, होटल ये सब बने, तो इसमें बैलेंस कैसे करें?
सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट।
देखो डेवलपमेंट एट द कॉस्ट ऑफ व्हाट? एट द कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी, एट द कॉस्ट ऑफ लाइफ? नहीं, आपको एक यू हैव टू मेक ए पॉलिसी, हिमालयन पॉलिसी। एक नया नाम हम दे रहे हैं, हिमालयन पॉलिसी। कहाँ पर आपको मकान बनाना है, कहाँ रिसोर्ट बनाना है, उसके लिए पहले आपको एक परमिशन लेनी पड़ेगी आपके स्टेट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन से, आपकी कम्युनिटी जो साइंटिफिक कम्युनिटी है और जो आपकी सोशल कम्युनिटी, उनके साथ कुछ इंटरेक्शन करना पड़ेगा। अब नैनीताल सपोज आप जाना चाहेंगे अभी अक्टूबर नवंबर में, इतनी भीड़ होती है, आपकी 4-4 किलोमीटर की लाइन लग जाती है। क्या ज़रूरत है? आप थोड़ा सा रुक के जाइए, पॉलिसी बनाइए कि भाई इतने लोग अभी आए। हमारे देखो भाई, दिस कंट्री इज़ नॉट मेड फॉर 140 करोड़। आपके देश की डेंसिटी, लैंड डेंसिटी एंड पॉपुलेशन डेंसिटी, इफ यू कोरिलेट, दोनों को कोरिलेट करें तो इतना ज़मीन नहीं है हमारे पास इतने आदमी को पड़ा। क्या ज़रूरत है कि यार 4 धाम की यात्रा के लिए लाखों लोग निकल पड़े? एक ज़माना था 60 साल के बाद जब आदमी आखिरी समय में होता था तब केदारनाथ की यात्रा। आज आप 6 महीने के बच्चे को गोद में लेके पहुँच रहे हो आप इस तरह से टूरिस्ट बन के आप जा रहे हैं, तो फिर आपके लिए उतनी एकोमोडेशन की ज़रूरत की वो भाई, फिर एकोमोडेशन की ज़रूरत, आप ज़मीन ढूंढेंगे, ज़मीन ढूंढेंगे आप तो डिफॉरेस्टेशन भी करेंगे और ऐसे सेंसिटिव एरिया में बस जाएंगे जहाँ बसना नहीं चाहिए आप। तो इकोलॉजी एंड जियोलॉजी, अगर इन दोनों को आपने बैलेंस नहीं किया, इनके साथ नहीं चले, देन फेस द कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस। अब धराली में हमने आपको दिखाया, वो एक फैन डिपॉजिट है, इट्स अ हाईली वल्नरेबल प्लेस। तो बिफोर सेटलमेंट किसी को तो सोचना चाहिए कि हम बसें या न बसें। एंड सेम केस इज नैनीताल, जहाँ पे सिर्फ 10 मकान बने चाहिए आज 1000 मकान बना दिए हैं। तो ये सिविल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन को एक नेशनल पॉलिसी बनानी पड़ेगी, एक बिल्डिंग बायलॉज बनाने पड़ेंगे, तभी यू कैन सेव योरसेल्फ। अदरवाइज आप डेवलपमेंट को साथ साथ ले चलें और इकोलॉजी एंड जियोलॉजी को छोड़ दें तो फिर बहुत मुश्किल होगी।
Any more questions from the audience?
क्वेश्चन नहीं सर, 2-3 मेरे भी कुछ पॉइंट्स जस्ट
sure.
just
You want the mic?
some of those points. Yeah.
You want the mic?
No, I think
आपकी आवाज आ रही है?
audible.
Is it audible?
Audible है।
तो सर कोई दिक्कत नहीं। बेसिकली एक तो मैं कॉन्ट्रैक्ट सिस्टम पे थोड़ा सा मेरा पॉइंट बेसिकली है कि whenever we go for contract, for any contract, including this slope stability or now we are seeing कि 40% below the kind value, 40%, 50%, L1. So मतलब where is the fault? Mistake कहाँ पे है? एक DPR agency है, they have come out with certain budget, certain amount of कि 100 crore में हो जाएगा, but वो 100 crore वाला वर्क जो है 60 crore या 70 crore में आप अवॉइड कर देते हैं। वेदर वो रियलिस्टिक नहीं था, या तो रियलिस्टिक नहीं था, या फिर उसको जो समथिंग जो है पहले से बढ़ा के समथिंग उसको किया गया। अगर तो बेसिकली एक्यूरेट था, इसका मतलब है कि वो जो वर्क जो होगा वो सब स्टैंडर्ड होना लाजमी। डेफिनेटली उसमें कोई दो राय है नहीं, सब स्टैंडर्ड होना तो लाजमी है। तो वो वेदर एक इवैल्यूएशन में वेदर वी शुड रिजेक्ट दैट टेंडर, ऐसा कुछ होना चाहिए हमारे पास सिस्टम समथिंग, बट वो रिएक्ट करने के लिए आपको जस्टिफाई करना होगा एंड नोबडी टेक्स वो कैसे नोबडी विल बेल द कैट, तो वो नहीं करेगा, कोई नहीं करेगा। दूसरा एक हमारी कैपेसिटी की बात जो हम करते हैं समथिंग, आप NHA की बात करें, हम कह रहे हैं कालका शिमला रोड की बात करें, NHA का प्रोजेक्ट है, NHA they should have the capacity something. Now एक perhaps you might be knowing now जब ये सारी slopes इनकी जो फेल हो रही थी something, now they have contacted SJB। हम बात कर रहे थे कि हाइड्रो का एक्सपीरियंस हम इधर यूटिलाइज कर रहे थे, टनलिंग में भी हम स्लोप्स में भी यूज कर रहे हैं। इसका मतलब NHA की कैपेसिटी नहीं थी,
नहीं है। Similarly,
नहीं है तो they should hire someone for that। नहीं, BRO की बात आपने या टनलिंग की बात की आपने कि जब इनके पास भी कैपेसिटी नहीं थी, अब हो सकता है वो मैं कह नहीं सकता। 2007 में when they were about to start work of the Rohtang tunnel, 2007 में then they started capacity building, वहां से शुरू किया उन्होंने अपने ऑफिसर्स को। कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग कैसे शुरू किया? आई वाज द फोर्स कोऑर्डिनेटर, हम लोगों ने जो है उसका SMEC वाज द एजेंसी में इन्होंने अडॉप्ट किया था, तो हम CSMRS और SMEC दोनों ने मिलकर उनका एक ट्रेनिंग ऑर्गेनाइज किया, बट 2 वीक्स CSMRS और देन SMEC में हुआ। देन दे वेंट टू यूरोप, आई थिंक NGI आल्सो फॉर ओवरसीज ट्रेनिंग। मतलब कैपेसिटी बिफोर स्टार्टिंग एनी प्रोजेक्ट जिसको आप हैंडल करना है, तो आपकी कैपेसिटी इन हाउस होनी चाहिए। साहब ने PMC की बात की, आया तो आपके पास इन हाउस कैपेसिटी है तब तो ठीक है, इन हाउस कैपेसिटी नहीं था, आपकी जो PMC है दैट शुड बी सफिशिएंट, उनके पास वो एडिक्वेट कैपेसिटी उसकी होनी चाहिए। अदरवाइज जो EPC कॉन्ट्रैक्ट सिस्टम जो हम आज की डेट में लेके आ रहे हैं, अगर ओनर के पास कैपेसिटी नहीं है तो डिजास्टर्स आर बाउंड टू कम एंड आप उनका डिजाइन बेट नहीं कर सकते हैं। आइदर यू शुड हैव अ PMC और आपकी अपनी कैपेसिटी होनी चाहिए। और एक बात थोड़ा सा और एक मैं फर्दर जो है कि हम बात कर रहे हैं कि स्लोप्स को मेंटेन या स्लोप्स को मैनेज करने का, बट स्लोप्स की इन्वेस्टिगेशन जो है एंड इंस्ट्रूमेंटेशन की बात हम करते ही नहीं। इंस्ट्रूमेंटेशन सरफेस मूवमेंट हमें नहीं पता, हमें ये नहीं पता कि उस स्लिप सर्कल का डेप्थ क्या है, किस डेप्थ पे वो प्लेन दैट स्लिप प्लेन विल बी देयर। आपको अर्थ प्रेशर सेल चाहिए, आपको लोड सेल चाहिए, आपको इंक्लाइनोमीटर्स चाहिए, आपको पीजोमीटर्स चाहिए, आपको मल्टी पॉइंट बोरोल एक्सेलरोमीटर्स की जरूरत होगी सरफेस और डीप सीटेड मूवमेंट के लिए. Once you come up with those parameters, only then तभी उसके बाद ही आप rehabilitation या उसके barriers suggest कर पाएंगे. ये मेरे कुछ भी points
Yes, very important points. And I think, see, we talk a lot about these things, but we have to find an official platform which can drive it forward. So I have a proposal, since you are there. So your points are very well taken. There is increased noise being made in the country about not using EPC for important projects like these. And I think there is a merit, you also mentioned that. Perhaps item rate contract would work better for this. And also follow the risk sharing part which is given by the FIDIC's Emerald book now for underground works they have come. And even if you are not dealing with underground, but these are mega projects, they are important projects. Even for above surface works, I think we need to follow some other model that we have been following. Otherwise, why should, because contractor saves money because it's the EPC contract. So those things. So thank you very much for this, and we definitely, I have a proposal to make, and part of the question also.
थोड़ा सा इनका आंसर दे दूँ. आपने जो कहा है ऐसा कि 40% बिलो और 30% बिलो पे उसका अवार्ड दिया जाता है. ये डिपार्टमेंट की there are two bids, technical bid and financial bid.
Yeah.
Technical bid में that contractor should bid this quality. If suppose you are tendering 40% below the estimated cost, और उसका examination हो पूरा and that should be disqualified. There is no chance कि आप 40% below में किसी काम को कर डालेंगे. नंबर वन, मगर ये करता नहीं है क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट की ऐसे रूल्स बने हुए हैं जो थोड़ा अब इसमें हल्ला हो रहा है. और शायद टेक्निकल क्वालिफिकेशन में आने वाले समय में वेरी सून इन टाइम्स टू कम दे आर मेकिंग वन क्लॉज कि इसमें इसको डिस्क्वालीफाई. अरे देयर आर प्रोजेक्ट्स, आई हैव सीन प्रोजेक्ट्स इन NHPC बिलो 30% किया है HCC ने, बट उनको हमारी मॉनिटरिंग बहुत जबरदस्त रहती थी और परेशान हो जाते थे और कहते थे साहब हम तो मर जाएंगे, हम तो ये हो जाएगा वो हो जाएगा.
Not even 30% above and over that. Sir, reverse bidding.
reverse bidding.
Yes, I have seen कि NH1 हमारा जो हाईवे है, इस पे मैंने बहुत बार देखा कि अगर I think तो twice or thrice जो है जो जिनको भी वर्क अवार्ड किया गया, they fled वर्क अबंडन करके, और for years together जो है वो unattended road.
Yes, that is true.
नहीं वो आप देखिए गवर्नमेंट थोड़ा सा जाग रही है इसमें.
One more thing, sir. Maybe it's a question that you qualify technically, and then only your financial bid will be open, so you are awarded. Now, but then in many of these projects, these contractors sublet the work to contractors who are not technically qualified. So then this technical qualification.
Not only that, even in Jamrani Dam, I tell you, gentlemen, AFCON has given, they have submitted one project this year. Sorry, क्या नाम होता है मैं भूल गया है. जमरानी डैम में एक आदमी एक कॉन्ट्रैक्टर को लाए हैं वहाँ से. अब वो हालांकि दे आर वेरी साइलेंट, दे डू नॉट वांट टू डिस्क्लोज इट, बट हमें तो पता चल ही जाता है कौन सबलेट है. एंड सबलेट करना इज ए क्रिमिनल ऑफेंस. आप बहुत खतरनाक काम करना है सबलेट करना. बड़े बड़े जैसे बर्मन साहब ने कहा, बहुत जगह देखा हमने सबलेट करके और चुपचाप मेन कॉन्ट्रैक्टर हट जाता है और वो एक आदमी आके एंड वो अपना किसी तरह मैनेज करता है टॉप से लेके बॉटम तक. एंड आप इस
लोग फाइनेंशियल जोन में नहीं होता,
which means this contractor got the work as 40% below the value, and subletting the work even at a lower value. So you can imagine what is that.
Just add the profits of both the companies, so then 40% के वो 60% below हो गया.
So we have just solved the mystery why slopes fail. This is why the slopes fail. That's the answer.
Yes, exactly. आपने ब्लॉक बोर्ड के लिए किसी और SDA लगाने के लिए किसी और पार्टी को दे दिया, किसी और को दे दिया,
which is not existent in the market. The cost is more than the execution cost.
A railway contract was awarded 80% below.
आपका दूसरा क्वेश्चन क्या था सर? बड़ा वैलिड क्वेश्चन. आप
Instrumentation वगैरह.
Instrumentation.
Instrumentation.
ये this has become a mandatory now.
Oh, great.
Yes, everybody there. I mean, inclinometer, piezometer, and accentometer.
Accentometers.
हाँ, ये सारे के सारे अब मैंडेटरी हो गया। ये हम लोगों ने बहुत लाना चाहिए।
अच्छा,
ये बलियानाला में
ये तो सर इस तरह से होना चाहिए जैसे अभी हमारे बस अभी तक हमारे डैम्स जो है अबंडेंट स्टेट में थे। डैम्स जो थे अबंडेंट स्टेट में टिल दिस डैम सिटी एक्ट came into
Right.
force.
That is what is going to happen.
Now थोड़ा सा उनका देखरेख शुरू हुआ है, बट सिमिलरली मतलब बाकी अदर एरियाज में भी अदर डोमेन्स में भी हमें
Yes, and my next question which I'll ask is actually
regulations लाना होगा।
Just indicating instrumentation, the latest development.
Regulations लाना होगा, regulations possibly है।
Sir, instrumentation basically financially covers a very small amount of money, maybe few crores out of the thousands of crores of project. That's why it is mostly neglected. स्लोप कट जाते हैं, स्लोप सर एक्सकेवेटिव कॉन्ट्रैक्टर से सर अभी अवेलेबल नहीं है, जो लगाने वाला है दैट एजेंसी हैज रन अवे। सो अभी क्या हो रहा है सर, सी नाउ द मॉनिटरिंग एजेंसीज नाउ दे आर आस्किंग फॉर द instrumentation reports every on quarterly basis. If suppose the slope excavation level is this, your dam building level is this, where are your instrumentation drawings and what are the readings? If the readings are not available, they are so like that in tunnels also and in slopes also. So those things are required because instrumentation should be made as a part of the safety and what I feel, and then the contractor should be penalized. Otherwise, instrumentation monetary wise they lose nothing because it is very important when some problem happens. Then people look around the instrumentation.
Exactly.
So just a small question. Means instrumentation network is normally costly affairs. For a project like dam or tunnel site, it is okay. But for longer highway stretches, even if we are following a whole-to-part approach, that means suppose I have identified 50 problematic slopes, it will not be possible to install for each of these 50 slopes. It will not be possible for that thing. So can there be some alternate also?
His question is that for a project, localized project or important like hydropower, you can do the instrumentation. For a linear project, a highway is running for kilometers. How feasible it is to and how economical it is to put instruments, you can at best identify some areas.
And instrumentation can be based only in the vulnerability, which is potentially, I mean,
Whole-to-part approach.
not in the entire stretch of the road or not in the entire
Vulnerable areas.
This is only vulnerable areas.
And so the other question is that can instrumentation be replaced by something else?
Oh, well.
Let me throw some light on it. Actually, I wrote a paper way back in, I think it was 2007, studying whole of the country's approaches wherever instrumentation monitoring, particularly for landslide, was done by different institutes in our country. Earlier, we used to study, these slopes where the problems were occurring for short durations, 4 to 5 years. Other countries, they do it continuously wherever chronic complex and these cascading problems do occur. But in terms of monitoring, it's not always instruments. There are different type of monitoring systems which can be utilized. It can be an observational monitoring also. For example, enhanced tilting of the trees or bulging of the slopes. These are some of the type, or sudden disappearance of a spring. They are quite cheaper.
Who will do this?
Who
will do this?
I'll just so there are different techniques and different periods of observations which have been ideated. That can be through humans or through automations. Everything we have tried. Then the third part is because we are not always looking at the slopes as scientists or engineers. So another way is INSAR monitoring systems where differential settlements and displacements are also monitored, deformations are monitored. But ultimately it's the communities at the local level. Now new techniques have come up which are targeting the communities at the local level who can implement those systems and continue to monitor them on a regular basis. And they can take immediate action. There is an international code now on community-based early warning systems. But the problems are that we are not well aware. and integrated with the systems being developed in other countries. I told 1 lakh landslides in India. Italians have reported more than 6 lakh landslides. And the terrain which is affected by landslide in India is equivalent to the total terrain of Italy. And still, we are not having more. So that means our reporting is weak. Another issue which has been raised by our colleague here is regarding regulations. Japan has a SABO law. SABO relates to landslides, sediments. In that law, they maintain what is saying accountability and responsibility of different stakeholders. So you have to take immediate action, and Arindom was telling, as soon as you excavate the soil and provide the support system. If you are not done so, you have to pay for it if failure occurs. So those systems are still not there. And I think such meetings should actually bring out those recommendations with the highest authorities that we need law, we need regulations, and we need to impose such practices and standards which must be followed. Or even practicing standards are not well established. And every geologist will differ in his report or her report. And the reports are sometimes not clearly understandable for the engineers to implement. The first complaint an engineer makes is, this is just showing about stratigraphy, which is not understood by an engineer, but does not mention the strength material of the materials or the way he is mentioning the rock type which the engineer is not conversant with, but he is not telling the soundness of the compactness of the rock. वो थोड़ा सा हमें देखें, discontinuities engineers don't understand that. तो अगर हम उसको कर रहे हैं तो हमको थोड़ा सा पार होना चाहिए who we are communicating to and what way we are communicating. So that is also like.
I want to share something very interesting about instrumentation. In my early career, I did a lot of instrumentation. Installed myself throughout the night and days and monitored and analyzed the data. Those were passionate days. So during those days, as I said, we learned our tunneling from hydropower and irrigation sector, water sector. So the instrumentation was not given the importance that even at that time. But then our seniors made a lot of noise here and there at various forums, every conference, and so it started to become a regular part of monitoring instrumentation. Many instrumentation companies flourished because of that, actually at that time. So it kind of became mandatory in many of these projects. But then another problem came up. You see, instrumentation was at the end of it, particularly in tunnel environment, the survival rate is about 30%. It was about 30%. If you install 100 instruments, you will get meaningful data from say 30 at that time. And sometimes much less than that. So then there was the introspection, what is going on? Here comes the interesting thing. The thing is, somebody has to first draw the instrumentation scheme. Which instruments, at what distance, where, what kind of, right? And then somebody has to do the procurement of the instruments. So there is a company which is supplying the instruments. They could be the same company, other company installing the instruments. There's a company which is taking the observation of instruments at regular frequency. There's another company which is analyzing the instrument. So these were different companies mostly. So if something went wrong, they will point finger at each other. साहब हमने तो डेटा ठीक से एनालाइज किया, इनका इंस्ट्रूमेंट ठीक नहीं काम कर रहा है. साहब हमारा तो ठीक कर रहा है, तो इन्होंने इंस्टॉल ठीक नहीं किया है.
Placement of instrument.
So again, our seniors at that time, that it also including Dr. V.M. Sharma and Dr. Chetwa, they made a lot of noise again. Dr. R. and Gupta, and since they were working for government, they were heard. And so then it became mandatory in many projects to the company which will qualify to supply the instruments will have the end-to-end responsibility of this thing. So now what happened? The companies were not equipped with the right people. So somebody said, okay, they brought on board just for projects some professor IIT, so just to show that they are capable. But again, it went back to the same. One example of a sector which actually adopted instrumentation is the metro sector. Metro tunneling, it is mandatory and you carry out. But then the instrumentation company which does end-to-end is contractor's responsibility. Now contractor cuts corner. So they bring it the agencies and they give him much lower than what they ask for, and ultimately again goes down the drain, everything goes down. So we have to make sure that also. So some kind of framework, like he mentioned about think tank, we have to have some official platform, which is where my question is leading us to, and we need to also wrap it up pretty soon because everybody is itching to leave also. Don't worry, we'll give you some hot samosas in 10 minutes.
सर इसमें एक मैं जस्ट ऐड ऑन करना चाहूंगा, जैसे आपने
हरिदेव जी को नहीं मिलेगा समोसा।
इंस्टॉलेशन की एक बात की सर आपने, तो नॉर्मली जो हमारे जो सिविल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स जो हाइड्रो में रहते हैं, बेसिकली जो डैम का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट आपने किया, जो सिविल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट का सबसेट हो जाता है ये इंस्ट्रूमेंट,
करेक्ट,
उसी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट का सबसेट,
that's what I was saying,
rather than a separate
it
contract,
has to be separate,
उसका बुक सबसेट हो जाता है, और वो उसी कंपनी जो सिविल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स के लिए रिस्पॉन्सिबल है कंस्ट्रक्शन के लिए, वही इंस्ट्रूमेंट के लिए
संयम है कोतवाल तो फिर डर खाएगा,
तो फिर डर खाएगा।
yeah. So you are very right. So what I was coming to, Mr. Patni has mentioned on a couple of occasions that we should have a think tank or something, and we mentioned that there should be regulation, there should be this and that. We need to have a national framework. So do I propose that should India have a national slope management framework? And since out of all of us the most qualified and most experienced in implementing frameworks is NIDM. So because you've done, remember from where you started, how much you have done in this kind of things. So I'm asking you, under the broad question that we have science, we have technology, we have software on one side, and we have these frequent slope failures on the other side. So there is a disconnect. And what I have identified the disconnect is that we know the problems, but to implement the solution to those problems, we need some kind of a think tank. This is what I am proposing. So the question to NIDM is, should India have a national slope management framework, like we have frameworks for earthquakes related thing or other things, etc. So what is your opinion on this?
Sir, on paper many things do adjust. Okay, problem is enforcement. Because already when guidelines were developed, all concerned agencies, they were involved. What I found, they were not implemented. Enforcement is most important, and another is regulations and vigilance. I tell you one example from earthquake. There was a case of L'Aquila earthquake in Italy way back in April 2009, and their nodal agency for prediction of earthquake was National Institute of Volcanology Geophysics, who used to monitor seismicity. One of the, there are, multi-parametric studies they do, and one of the parameters is radon gas emission from the wells. And one of the technicians who was measuring that, he noticed a sudden rise in the radon emission. And he became excited. And out of excitement, he reported to the media that earthquake will happen soon. And the scientists, other scientists, the other parameters did not support the occurrence. So the nodal agency responsible for scientists did not tell the media. They said no. Only one parameter is supporting, others are not supporting, so earthquake may not happen. It was a Saturday and Sunday expected time. People were at home, and somehow that earthquake struck, and 300 people got killed. We went back. And in fact, thereafter, there was a case in the court, and those scientists who did not predict the earthquake, they were jailed. 2 years went on the case. Globally, we were thinking what to do. Still, the earthquakes are not predictable. So, whereas in case of landslides, we know almost everything like floods. And this was again a question which was raised by none other than our Union Home Minister Amit Shah ji himself, that we know about floods well. Why are you not able to control the consequences? Why are you not able to avoid the casualties? Because we know the rainfall, we are good in that. We know the rivers, we know the low-lying areas, everything. So the intents are not that good or strong. So that's where I am trying to point out the ethical responsibilities of our professionals of such a think tank which we are talking about.
So
we have to be thought about well, and who should actually take the right step at the right time.
Precisely for that reason, to force implementation, to force people to be ethical, and I'm talking smaller framework within landslides. Landslides is a bigger subject.
Yeah.
We're talking of the cut slope, the engineered slopes, a national slope management framework which will incorporate all that we discussed, the instrumentation and how to force the contractor to do things like that. So think about it, like you propose the think tank about these things. So if we could do better while constructing those slopes, the later landslides on those slopes can be avoided. But yes, for existing ones, landslide management has to be there. Yes.
Yeah, because those two have to be different.
Correct, that's what. So maybe NIDM can take a lead on this. Just think about it, and we can.
I think time is too short for me to take.
But NIDM, long live NIDM.
We will try.
Sure.
Other please.
Somebody has to take it. Now I come back to GSI, and we are trying to wrap up pretty soon because we need to hear more of GSI. So you've done a lot of susceptible mapping of the Kohli and GSI, and you 81,000, 90,000 landslide map, etc. And forecasting you have done. So in your opinion, you've done so much of work which is available, and I see the integration of that information is lacking. So how can susceptibility mapping and forecasting be better integrated into planning and construction as far as slopes are concerned?
Susceptibility mapping
and forecasting that you do, how can we better make use of it when we are planning the projects?
Sir, what I can say is that susceptibility mapping, as you have said, that it has been done actually for entire India on 1:50,000 scale. And sir is already sitting here in NIDM's document. Whatever critical sectors have been done, most of them have been done on 1:10,000 scale also. So for those also susceptibility maps are there. But in current scenario we are discussing since long here, I do not think that those maps are practically being considered. So one thing is that those maps should be considered. Okay, they are not rampant or sort of thing. After 5 or 10 years, they can also be updated, isn't it? And at our national, my colleague is sitting from Calcutta. The national database is also being updated time to time. So when the user is coming and letting us know the problem with map or the need of updation, then we can say that it can be updated on our side, because ours is a susceptibility mapping or whatever kind of study that they are our regular assignments. So there are some rules, some regulations. We cannot do it repeatedly again and again.
Right.
But then suddenly if some request is coming from somewhere, that can be always seen as a repeated exercise.
So you are doing your job because it is up to the user in the
So it is written in the report also. As a supervisor, I always write in my reports, in my geologist report, that it is a thing that needs updation also with the passage of time. So that way the map should be updated, because seeing the ranges and cover patterns in the area, in any area, certainly those maps will be outdated or they need some updation after some time. So that and one thing is as far as your forecasting is concerned, that is landslide early warning system which is being done from GSI Central Headquarters. That is actually right now it is in experimental stage. So some pockets are there for which regular, some districts are there rather for which regular bulletins are being issued, but it is still in experimental stage. So I hope that it will be days to come.
So the user industry, project people planning projects, people deciding about the alignment of projects.
So one more thing I would like to add, sir. Actually, for site-specific study, I am coming to now site-specific studies. In last few years, several studies have been done in Himachal Pradesh. So what I feel is that reports are going and they are hardly being consulted, or as you say that some DPR is not there like that. But the title is site-specific study of that XYZ site. So better if the same is being consulted at that particular time when it is actually needed. Because the request was from other end, not from my side. Isn't it? Because we in GSI generally we say that site-specific study, Atul, you please plan when some request is coming. So request means that person needs to consult that report at that time. It is not like that, Atul, what I have to do with these thick reports. Actually, you need not to study all the entire report. Now you should rather consult the last chapter.
Right. So again, I think this should go in that think tank's agenda or the National Slope Management Paper. This is a very important thing that we need to take into account while planning for the projects at that stage. And then we can make use of the existing one. And then once we have decided the area of interest or the alignment, then we do more site-specific studies. So it is the best one. I come back to NHPC, and this is the final question before we go to the quick fire thing and before we break. Now NHPC is the project owner amongst all of us, and so from a project delivery side, we discussed that the contractors do this and contractors do that. You also mentioned that. So, in your opinion, from project delivery side, how can the owners enforce better compliance or better practices from contractors and consultants?
I have already been told that owners are also equally responsible.
Yeah, as well, owners.
Because, being an owner, because we also need to enhance our quality and because we have to make a trade amongst the this quality consciousness and the timely delivery of the project. Only without timely delivery of the project, without compromising in quality, that doesn't solve the purpose. So for that, what I suggest is that these along with the designers, these type of courses will help to the site engineers posted at various sites.
Yeah.
They should, who are executing the work or supervising the work, they should also know that why this type of designs are being given, why the instrumentation is important. One, if we skip the instrumentation, sometimes they have recommended the instrumentation if we not install at this level later, because many times, just I am giving an example, the instrumentation people said, when you ask why the instrument APBX has not been installed, sir क्या करेंगे, ड्रिलिंग मशीन खाली नहीं था, तो ये ड्रिलिंग मशीन का ही नहीं मिला, तब तक स्लोप कट के नीचे आ
What
गया.
you're suggesting is that if the people who are managing the project,
So they need to be
they are not aware
enlightened,
that
they should be made more aware and about the importance of documentation, importance of support,
Right.
and the consequences of not installing the support.
exactly. So I get your point.
So those things should be
Right.
and both the PMC or the developer as well as the contractor.
Good point. We try to work on this, and so for this we can continue to work on this. So the final round is I ask all the four panelists a quick fire, very short response. I know they are knowledgeable people. One of the shortcomings of knowledgeable people, will come back to you, is that they have so much to say that it's difficult to stop them. Yeah, please.
Thank you, sir. So before my question, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Verman. I'm an engineering geologist and I have 10 years of experience. In my 10 years of short experience, I have worked with 9 different firms. So what I have seen, two major factors, please correct me if I'm wrong, planning and progress pressure are compromised at some stage. Planning means that when we do tender, we have a study that we have a tunnel of suppose 5 kilometers, then we have anticipated geology here. In this much of portion will come rock plus 2, rock plus 3, rock plus 4. On that basis, we do our calculations, demobilize, machinery mobilize. And then actually when we do excavations, anticipated something which does not match with actuals. And here the game starts. We have suppose two class anticipations. We do calculation that 3 meter pull per day, 1390 meter progress. 90 meter multiply something 90 lakh per month our billing. So when we actually do excavation, we see that the progress that should be 90 meter reduced to 15, 20, and ultimately at that report our progress is directly related to finance. पैसा नहीं आता है. उस समय क्या होता है, जैसे साइड ऑफिस है, that are connected by corporate office. वो बोले भाई साइड पे इतना मशीनरी डाला है, इतना मैन पावर डाला है, तुम प्रोग्रेस दे रहे हो, पैसा नहीं आ रहा है, कैसे होगा? Then at that time quality is compromised. As per my opinion, we have qualified shift engineers, we have design, we have everything. That rock board angle should be 90 degree plus minus 10 degree. We have weak holes that should be that with texture. Everything we have, but all that need time. और प्रोग्रेस प्रेशर है. अब टाइम रहेगा तो मेरा साइकिल टाइम है वो जब ऐड नहीं होगा. अब कंस्ट्रक्शन में मेरा टाइम जो है वो डे और नाइट दोनों शिफ्ट में काम होता है. डे वाला जब शिफ्ट जाएगा वो शाम वाले बोल के जाएगा मेरे को प्रोग्रेस चाहिए, ब्लास्ट चाहिए. अब उसको 12 घंटे में ब्लास्ट देना है, उसके लिए साइकिल है, मेरे को लाइट्स भी लगाना है, मर्किंग भी करना है, डिफ्यूमिंग भी है, उसके बाद मेरे को रॉक स्ट्रक्चर या जो स्पोर्ट्स फीचर्स है वो भी लगाने हैं. अब ये सब चीजें जो है टाइम टेकिंग है. अगर मैं स्ट्रक्चर्स की तरफ जाता हूँ, रॉक बोर्ड करता हूँ, ग्राउटिंग करता हूँ, मैं उसको फुल क्या प्रोग्रेस नहीं दे पाऊंगा. अब जब दूसरे दिन वो प्रोग्रेस दे पाएगा उसको गाली खाने को मिलेगा, यार पूरा दिन कुछ दिया नहीं. अब उसके ऊपर क्लाइंट है, कैंसिल है. सो मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था कि इन सिचुएशन में कैसे टैकल किया?
Lack of awareness. Your bosses do not understand the subject. That is why they do it. Because if you're tunneling through the Himalayas, frequent visiting geology, for example, you mentioned that there are different classes.
Right.
But the actual you don't meet them at the location that you expected, and therefore, but they have to be aware that there could be surprises because of lack of investigation. And then in certain ground conditions, you cannot go fast. Not only that, you have to have not 3-4 meter pull, you have to have half a meter, etc. You put more supports. So progress can slow down. So they should look at average progress over say a quarter rather than every day or every week, every month in these conditions.
सर लेकिन ट्रू फैक्ट सबको पता है कि इसमें नहीं आएगा, बट फिर भी
प्रेशर देखो, आई टेल यू वन थिंग, 100% प्रेडिक्शन कहीं पे भी नहीं हो सकता कि इतना क्लास हो, इतना क्लास हो, इतना क्लास हो। उसमें प्लस आई टोल्ड यू 30% इज अ ग्रे एरिया, वो आप कुछ न कुछ प्रॉब्लम आपको झेलना पड़ेगा। एज फार एज द क्लाइंट इज कंसर्न, एज यू सेड, जैसे आपके ऊपर से ऑर्डर आया कि मुझे 100 मीटर प्रोग्रेस चाहिए, भाई पर्टिकुलरली इज लाइक वाली इट्स वेरी इम्पॉसिबल, यू कैन नॉट सेट द टारगेट। तो आप एक प्लान जरूर बनाइए, मेरा पर डे इतना ऑन एन एवरेज दिस प्रोग्रेस आई विल अचीव। अगर इन केस नहीं होता है तो उसको साइकिल टाइम को उसको इम्प्रूव करिए, मकिंग के टाइम को, ब्लास्टिंग के टाइम को, ब्लास्टिंग पैटर्न को एंड डिफ्यूमिंग को, सारे टाइम तो इसी में जाता है ना। और फाइनली एक जगह कहीं भी कंप्रोमाइज मत करिए, दैट इज अ सपोर्ट सिस्टम। इफ यू गो विदाउट सपोर्ट यू विल बी इन ट्रबल।
पर वो
बाकी चीजों में आप
इनकी मुश्किल ये है सर कि ऊपर से प्रेशर आता है,
नहीं, दैट इज
मुझे पैसा चाहिए, आप प्रोग्रेस चाहिए।
देखो आपको समझाना ही पड़ेगा, और इस तरह का माइंडसेट लेके जो क्लाइंट है ना, बहुत लॉन्ग लाइफ सर्वाइव नहीं कर पाते चैलेंज की वजह से। हमने बहुत लोगों को उजड़ते देखा है। इस तरह से अगर साइंस या इंजीनियरिंग एथिक्स के साथ वो मजाक करेंगे कि मुझे तो इतनी प्रोग्रेस चाहिए, वो आदमी बहुत ज़्यादा सर्वाइव
लंबा
है।
So how you convince them is something, it's a difficult question to answer, but how we did it, how I did it when I was younger, I had the courage, and courage came from the knowledge. I could tell everybody it is not possible the kind of progress you're asking in this step. Otherwise you'll compromise now and you will suffer later. They would listen to you. I can guarantee they will listen to you if you have the knowledge. और गाली नहीं दे सकते आपको. If you come across somebody who is knowledgeable, who knows the subject, गाली नहीं देगा कोई।
भाई हमने जब टनलिंग स्टार्ट की थी, हमारी प्रोग्रेस जब मैंने ज्वाइन किया था 50 सेंटीमीटर, और 50 सेंटीमीटर जब हम करके आते हैं तो गुड़ और चने बढ़ते थे वहाँ। और एक कमाल किता तुसी, पूरा पंजाबी फूडमैन थे हमारे बेचारे, और हमारे बीइंग NHPC गवर्नमेंट ओन कंपनी, तो बहुत अच्छा 50 सेंटीमीटर कर दिया। हम भी चौड़े होकर सीना लेके बाहर निकलते हुए 50 सेंटीमीटर की प्रोग्रेस है आज। जब मैं रिटायर हुआ, यू नो व्हाट वाज द प्रोग्रेस, 40 मीटर पर डे। नो डाउट, although this was through a mechanized system, TVM लगा के, बट अंतर होता है। मगर जो कन्वेंशनल ड्रिलिंग ब्लास्टिंग मेथड से आज हम अचीव कर रहे हैं, दैट इज ऑन एन एवरेज 3 मीटर। इतना अगर आप ले आते, इससे ज़्यादा लाना इज इम्पॉसिबल इन एनी क्लासरूम रॉक। आई कैन गिव यू इन राइटिंग मोर देन 3 मीटर लाना इम्पॉसिबल इन वन साइकिल।
Otherwise you increase the number of faces.
यस, करिए फिर ओवर ब्रेक आपका हो जाएगा, कैविटी चिमनी फॉर्मेशन दुनिया भर की,
वो अनइकोनॉमिकल हो जाएगा, वो समझाना पड़ता।
लेकिन उनकी प्रॉब्लम मैं समझ रहा हूँ एज ए यंग इंजीनियर और यंग जियोलॉजिस्ट, you have to report to people. I understand your problem, and so the next question that I was going to ask is, so I will answer that question, although I was not supposed to answer, but I need to give this. The question I was going to ask, and you have to reply within few seconds, is that one message you want to give to young professionals. But wait, let me give my message first.
Yes.
And that is, the thing is, as a young professional, you have constraints. You do not have freedom to decide things yourself. You do not have freedom to get back at your boss, for example. You have to listen to it. That's how you work it. But so most young professionals, they succumb to this and join the same system. You become the same. You're good now. You will cross over and become that boss and start asking same thing possibly. Don't do that. Never do that. Please, for God's sake. Even if आपको गाली मिले, कुछ भी मिले, be on the side of what is right. Always. Just get through this difficult period. And please put forward arguments, sir. This is why I think it's needed. But if you are saying, okay, we'll try. But do not succumb to this pressure कि यही सही है जो कह रहे हैं, वो गलत कह रहे हैं. So that's a professional, and you will see, you mark my words, हम 20 साल बाद मिलेंगे अगर हम जिंदा रहे तो, और आप कहेंगे आपने सही मैसेज दिया था, because I have seen this in my life, right? So आप जो सही है उसकी तरफ रहिए, my message है. So one message very quickly from each one of you. Do you have professionals?
I think I'll just like to continue with what Dr. Verman has said actually. मैं अपना एक्सपीरियंस शेयर करता हूँ आपको. जब मैं यंग था तो I was given at a time a job by Babcock. They were doing some project for tunneling for an NTPC project, and they were recruiting people like me, young people, to carry out the field work. So they recruited some people earlier, and then they asked that we want you also to work for us. I said okay, I will work, but I'll work for a certain amount of money, minimally. So they were that time paying 50,000 and said I need minimum 20,000 to work. They said, what is the difference? All the people like you who are doing the same job, they're getting only 15,000. Why you want 20,000? I said there is a difference of quality. No, whatever things we are doing, technically I knew that you require certain more parameters to make it more economical and engineering based than what is being shown by other people who are commonly practicing the normal standards. तो वो चीजें जैसे मैं बताता हूँ आपको, we are doing drilling and blasting, and what is being done was a driller will come and drill holes, and a blaster who is just 12th pass and got a license will put some fuming and do the blasting of the whole area, and lot of that sediment and other things will blast away. A bigger hole will come. There was no systematic science into that. But I studied that and I said I can take the material out as it is required by me in pieces which can be reutilized. And also the dust will be minimum. So we can regain our progress again. So that economics was my argument as he was telling to put forth my conditions of payment. Another issue I tell you, more than 20 years ago now, it's almost 22 years, I did real-time automated monitoring of landslides. At that time, nobody was ready, including the Survey of India, which is the topmost organization of the country, refused that we cannot do this kind of monitoring. I was the individual who said, no, I can do it. And I took up the challenge and did it real-time with 2 permanent stations and 4 benchmarks and showed them the way how we can do it. So आदमी को करना है ना, अगर आपके पास knowledge है, you can always work with it.
So his message to young professional is that do what you think is correct, but back it with knowledge.
Back up.
So let's go over to Mr.
No, just one message you. No, message ये है कि देखिए global. I have worked with many countries. Some of the countries are doing best in slope management. The example comes from Hong Kong Geotechnical Control Office. Each slope is well referenced in their country because they have very limited land and all are slopey. And their slope management is perhaps the best practices in the world. So you should see that and learn from them, and then I think we can manage this. And they have hundreds of years of instrumented data on all this. So we should do that.
Thank you.
I think.
Mr. Patni, one quick message.
There, one thing very clear, whatever you want to do, you do the full commitment level. High commitment level should be there. And whatever you are doing, do religiously and devote your maximum time in the field. Don't worry what your client says, what your senior says. In times to come, when you will gain a satisfactory amount of experience, you will get a good chunk. तू नहीं तो कोई और सही, और नहीं तो कोई और सही.
मिलता है.
अपनी नीयत को साफ रखिए, मेहनत करिए, फील्ड पर खूब जम के काम करिए, खूब सीखिए, and learn from the ground level also. लेवल से भी बहुत कुछ सीखना.
अरे बहुत. आपने फॉरमैन का सीख किया.
एक आदमी से जहाँ पर खड़े हो, if you are a civil engineer, एक से आपका कंप्रेसर खड़ा, तो छोड़ो यार, ये तो मैकेनिकल का. नो, प्लीज उसको भी देखिए. आई एम बीइंग ए जियोलॉजिस्ट, मैंने तो फॉर लास्ट 40 इयर्स कंस्ट्रक्शन में सब कुछ सीखा. गेट भी मैंने लगाए, सॉफ्टवेयर भी मैंने बनाई, लाइट एसोमीटर भी सॉफ्टवेयर बनाई. तो कोई पूछेगा जियोलॉजिस्ट के हिसाब से क्या मतलब है, ठीक है, माय बॉस हैज गिवन मी अपॉर्चुनिटी, मैंने कहा आई विल मेक इट। राइट से उठे शार्प दौड़ी गया, वो शार्प सारी मेरी बनवाई। हाइड्रोमैकेनिकल के गेट 100 मीटर गेट, सब शार्प के गेट वो मैंने लगाए, और नहीं आता था, सीखता था, लोगों से पूछता था, यार मुझे बताओ कैसे है, क्या है, करते करते करते। तो मैक्सिमम अपना टाइम डिवोट सही पे करिए और शर्माइए नहीं। एंड वन फाइन मॉर्निंग आपको लगेगा बस मैंने बहुत कुछ सीख लिया।
एब्सोल्युटली, आई फुल्ली, ये लास्ट स्टेटमेंट बिल्कुल बताता हूँ। एक दिन आपको अपने आप लगेगा वो एक फाइन मॉर्निंग आएगी, बट हम सारे उपदेश जोगिंदर को ही क्यों दे रहे हैं? क्वेश्चन कुछ कैसी है?
नहीं उधर कॉमन एड्रेस है। मुझे याद है ड्रिलिंग इंजीनियर थे हमारे CSMRS के, और उसी NTPC प्रोजेक्ट में हमारी कोई रिकवरी नहीं हो रही थी। तो वो बोले मैंने 30 साल से काम किया। मैंने पूछा कि क्या आप मेटेरियल यूज कर रहे हो, क्या हार्डनेस है, क्या रोक की एब्रेसिवनेस है? तो बोले नहीं है, मेरे को पढ़ाने की जरूरत नहीं है, मैंने 30 साल से यही काम किया। तो मैंने कहा आप ड्रिलेबिलिटी इंडेक्स निकाला है इसका? तो मुझे नहीं पता था ड्रिलेबिलिटी इंडेक्स पढ़ाया जाता है नहीं पढ़ाता है, परंतु ही वाज नॉट अवेयर। ये कौन सा पैरामीटर है, ये तो हमने यूज नहीं किया है। तो होता है कभी कभी ना, हर एक डिसिप्लिन से सीखता।
यस
सर, एक लाइन खत्म कर रहा है चलो
सर। जो मिस्टर जोगिंदर ने जो क्वेश्चन पूछा था, आई थिंक इन दिस फोरम मोस्टली पीपल आर फ्रॉम द इन दिस साइड, मार्केटिंग साइड, और from design or from the GSI or NHPC, none of them from the this execution side from the contractors. So just my message to the forum to tell your contractor or your bosses who are controlling you to please don't think that the geology quality, those departments who are basically they are your troublemakers, basically they are your troubleshooters. And don't use them as scapegoats, use them as your troubleshooters, and they will help you in long run. So this is my small message.
Great. And finally, Dr. Atul Kohli.
सभी वरिष्ठ लोगों ने काफ़ी कुछ कह दिया, बट मैं आपका जो पॉइंट था कि बहुत ज़्यादा ये देना पड़ता है, आउटपुट देना पड़ता है बॉस को या कुछ है, तो इसके लिए मैं इतना ही कह सकता हूँ कि इन माई लाइफ ऑल्सो दिस काइंड ऑफ स्टेजेस हैव बीन देयर। उसके लिए कभी कभी आपको प्रोएक्टिव अप्रोच करना पड़ेगा। उसमें ऐसा नहीं है कि कुछ मेरे लिए टारगेट है, वो तो लोडेड हो ही सकते हो आप उसमें, लेकिन आपने कुछ ज़्यादा लर्न करना है तो थोड़ा एक्स्ट्रा एफर्ट भी करना पड़ेगा। और आई थैंक यू टू GSI में हमारे एग्रीकल्चर डिपार्टमेंट आई शुड नॉट शेयर, बट कभी कभी क्या होता है डिसिप्लिन चेंज कर दिया जाता है। कोई बंदा किसी चीज़ में काम कर रहा है, उसको 5-6 साल में रिक्वायरमेंट के हिसाब से चेंज कर दिया जाता है। बट आई थैंक यू टू GSI हैज केप्ट मी इन सेम डिसिप्लिन ऑल थ्रू माय करियर। शायद मेरा तो इतना कुछ लिंक नहीं है GSI में बड़े लोगों से कि मैं अपना कह के कुछ करा दूँ, बट कुछ तो शायद थोड़ा बहुत कर रहे हैं जो मतलब अभी तक चेंज नहीं किया। तो जैसे सर ने बोला, मेहनत करते रहेंगे, कंसिस्टेंसी के साथ काम करते रहेंगे तो आपको कोई कुछ हो नहीं करेगा और कुछ अच्छा दे पाएंगे।
Yeah, so finally I can say there's a saying, usually people quote in a negative way, but it can sometimes be positive, and that is reward of good work is more work. It is actually positive thing. If you continue to do good work, you'll get more opportunities to learn, and you can only learn by putting in more work. So if you get more work, you consider yourself fortunate that it's time to learn. And one fine morning, as I said, you realize that you've learned enough, and you will thank everybody that who actually like he's thanking GSI. So that's it. So ladies and gentlemen, it was wonderful having this panel discussion. I'm really sorry for the audience that you had to sit through this for a longer than expected time. And it's the fag end of we're towards the end of this 2-day program. And so thank you very much all the panelists, and thank you very much for your presence and time and your invigorating answers. And you threw up many possibilities going forward. And I think I'm much richer as far as policy is concerned. I will try and put together all these things and maybe bring out an article. I'm not a implementing agency or something, but it is my responsibility to take this voice to wherever it can reach, and we've got people from the government, 3 of them at least, who will actually talk about it, and the word will travel for sure. I can only assure you that the world is watching this. There may not be many people in this hall, but the world is watching this. Many people are interested in what is going on here at SlopeTech, and that comes because many of us have put in so many years behind it, and people know about it, so they are watching with interest. So don't think that this message is not going to go anywhere. This will travel. So with those words, I think it's time, and we have last few minutes. Enjoy a cup of tea and whatever the snacks are, and continue the network, and let's be in touch. I promise that we'll send all the presentations which were made here, put them in a bundle and share with everybody. And thank you once again. Let's keep in touch.
And that's
Thank you very much.
a standing ovation for you to coordinate all that.
Thank you.